So in this video, we're going to be talking about methods and objects and properties of objects, as well as getting a little more detailed than they do in the this lesson up over here, the shape methods in Unit 4. There's just like one or two things that I wanted to point out there just to make sure it's super clear. And I wanted to talk about these things a little bit. So we have seen the properties of objects. Here's an object. It is a circle. It's got these different properties. 200 is the x coordinate. The other 200 is its y coordinate. The third property is its radius. It has a radius of 10. And the fourth property is its fill. Properties are describing, it's like the adjectives. I was about to say the properties. It's the things that define the information that object is holding onto. We've seen that we can create our own custom properties by first making a variable to hold on to an object, and then, just call that variable and custom property, whatever you want to call it, and you can add your own custom property to any object. Now we're going to learn about what are called methods. Methods are very similar to functions. They're almost identical, actually. It's just that, so here's a Python program that we have over here, right? Great, beautiful, nice Python program. Over here on line 5, we created what's called a function. We defined a function, and that function will do a thing when it is called. This function is a built-in function. It's called onKeyPress. So whenever I press a button on my keyboard, it will do that function. It'll do everything inside of that function. They have inputs, all that good stuff. You can make your own function. We've already seen all that before. A method is just a function, but instead of putting it inside of our script, our Python script that we're making here, it's a function that some object can do. So instead of a function that will do something when called upon within our script that we have right here, a method, and my terminology is probably not 100% correct here, but basically a method is a function for an object. It's something that object can do. Someday in the future, we will create our own objects with our own built-in custom properties. We will create our own methods for those objects. But right now, we're just getting some practice on, we have an object. We have 3 objects actually in this scene: a rectangle object stored in the variable box, a circle object stored in the variable player, and a label object stored in the variable endState. And these different objects have methods that you can call upon them. So what I have right now, let's just take a look at the program, is I have a little circle and it's inside of a box. And as I move my arrow keys, it moves around. If I wanted to be like perfectly in this border, that's why I have the WASD over there. So I can like very finely edit where that circle is. And that's what this program does right now. Now, I think they do a very, very good job on this lesson over here. It's just that there's a really easy detail to miss. So I just want to point out the hit and contain stuff and kind of the detail. It's like one sentence, one word that really is super, super easy to miss. So I just wanted to point that out explicitly to all of you. So the first function we're going to take a look at is contains. So the way contains works is whenever the contains function is called on an object, it will, well, let me start writing it out. So I'm going to say, if the box dot contains, and I'm going to say player dot center x, player dot center y, then I guess I'll just make the endState dot visible equal true, and then I'm going to say else. We'll say that the endState dot visible equals false. Okay, so now that we have it written out, we can see exactly what that does. The contains function, the contains method is called on a object, you can call it on all sorts of objects. In this case, we're calling it on a rectangle object. What contain does is it checks to see if the two coordinates that you input are within that object, within the boundaries of that object physically, geometrically. Before, I think in the actual CMU lesson, they were using on mouse move or on mouse drag or something like that. And here we're actually using the circle that we created, the player. You can use whatever X and Y that you want to check if it contains, right? So what we're going to see right now is because the box does contain the player, we're going to set the end state to true because the box, the player is inside of the box. Notice, by the way, when I first ran it, it didn't have it, and that's because we hadn't called on key press yet. As soon as I call on key press, then it moves the thing, it does the check to see if the box contains it. Because the circle is inside of this box right now, it's saying you lose. If I move my player outside of the box, it gets rid of that end state. You don't lose. Back inside the box, and notice contains is like just a teeny tiny, I guess we can come up over this way. Notice that contains is exact. So my circle is at 50, my box is at 50 in the X. It is the same, it's inside of it, it's contained by it. If I just move to 49, just outside of it, it's about the center of this, which I guess I'm just learning right now too. Let's see what else we want to do. We can also do if box dot hits. That's another method that a lot of shapes have. I think all the shapes, but I haven't checked all of them. I'm going to be honest with you. Go check it out yourself. And so now if I run it, if the box dot hits my circle, it will say that I lose. And right now, it's not hitting the box, even though it's within the boundaries of this box. But as soon as I hit over here, it says I lose. And actually, I want to check this detail of, does the hit, if the center's there, if I move here, ooh, it's only checking for the center. Oh, duh. Of course it's only checking for the center. That's because we're not using the shape, we're using the coordinates of the center. Of course it's going to do that. So here's one thing. They do mention it. They absolutely mention it. That hits, so contains is just within the XY coordinates of the thing, of the object. Hits instead means if that coordinate is touching a part of the object. Because I'm filling my object with none, with nothingness, what that means is when I'm inside of the object over here, well, I'm not hitting it because I'm touching none. I'm touching nothing. If I change this fill to black, let's say, and I run it, now I am hitting the object because the object is there. It's not none. Similarly, I could make this white and it looks the same as none, but because it's not none for the fill, it's white, I am hitting a part of the object. I'm hitting a white part of the object. When I switch this to none, again, it's not a white part of the object. There's nothing there, so it's not hitting anything. Once I hit the part, though, it says you lose, because that's what we made the program do, right? By the time we're here, I'm hoping that you understand, right? If this is true, then we do this part. Else, we set the visibility of the end state back to false. Doesn't show it. By the way, we're not going to say it. Hits or contains or hits shape or contains shape, it will have a value of true or false depending on whether or not that object is hitting or does contain that thing. If it does contain it or if it does hit it, it will appear true. If it doesn't, it'll appear false. And that's why we can put it inside of an if statement. An if statement can hold on to anything that is true or false. And since hits eventually evaluates to a true or false value, an if statement can hold on to it. I don't know if they mentioned that in the lesson, but I'm mentioning it here. Instead of doing coordinates, you can do hits shape And then instead of putting the player.centerX and player.centerY, we can just put the player. And now we've got, here's the player walking around. Boom, it says you lose once I hit the thing. This is looking real nice for like a maze kind of program. And here, notice that it's not the center, right? Before I was using the center of my object. Here, it's checking, ooh, you see it's just barely not touching over there. I go one more, it is touching, so they hit, you lose. Similarly, right, if I change this fill just like before to black or, you know, whatever color you want, as soon as I move around here, it's hitting it because it's not none anymore, you lose over here. We'll do box.hits or contains shape, and then we'll call it a day for this. So if the box contains the shape and then the player, you'll have to put a variable in there, and the variable needs to be a shape. If it's not a shape, you'll probably get an error. I wonder if a label counts as a shape. You go test it out yourself. This video is long enough. Let's put this back to none again. And here's again the difference between contains and hits. Contains doesn't care about if the fill is none or not, or if you're hitting the border or not. Contains checking, are you within the boundaries of the shape? And oh, contains shape. Okay. Contains shape. If you're within the boundaries of the shape, it doesn't matter if it's filled or not, if it's filled with none or not. You're not within it, so you lose. And then notice here, because the object, my player, is not fully within, it's not fully contained within the shape, it's not saying you lose. As soon as I get fully covered by it, now I'm within the bounds. The entirety of my smaller shape is within the bounds of the entirety of the bigger shape. It contains it, so it says you lose. I hope that cleared some things up a little bit. I hope that seeing it with key press and using an object, center X and center Y, or the object itself, helps you understand it a little bit more than just like the mouse X, mouse Y. And I hope that was helpful in general. I think there was one other thing that I sought out to make this video with. I think I did it. I just can't think of what it was right now. So anyways, hope you enjoyed it as always, and have a good rest of your day.